Okay, so cards on the table here. This is where it's going to start getting kind of complicated. It's probably going to take you quite a few views through to really understand what I'm doing here. But yeah, that's what video's for. I'm going to give myself some more space to play with. So I've gone into edit mode. I'm just going to make the screen taller. Everything I'm going to be doing here goes between the note in and the MIDI to frequency. So I'm going to delete that patch and push this down to the bottom of the screen. Oops, misclicked. There we go. Okay, so the first object I'm going to add here is a poly. So I'm going to type poly space 1 space 1. And I'm going to patch the first output there, which is the MIDI note number. And this time we're going to start using the note velocity. This is actually how we're going to control it to be quiet when you're not holding a note. Although a MIDI note off message is a thing, the way that this synth is going to work, and most of the time actually, note off is actually going to be a note on message with a velocity of 0. It's it's a very common way that MIDI actually works. So I'm going to patch that second output here, the note velocity, into the second input of this. Okay, so poly, as the name suggests, allows you to set the polyphony of the instrument. Later on we will make this a polyphonic synth. It's monophonic for now, so I'm going to be leaving that first value you can see as 1. The other thing that it does though is it controls the voice stealing. So the second value that's there, if it's set as 0, if I'm holding a note, then I press a new note on the keyboard, nothing will happen, it ignores it. But if I set it to anything but 0, when I hold one note, hold a new note, the new note will steal the voice, will take over from the previous note. You might want it to behave in one way or another. Note stealing is most common, but having this allows you to control that setting. What comes out of this poly message here are three things. First of all is the MIDI is the voice number, followed by the second outlet there, that's the MIDI note number, and then the note velocity. I just want to demonstrate exactly what poly does by briefly changing this value here to, let's say, a 5, and I'll bring in a number, and I'll patch that to the first output. As I said, that is the voice number. If I leave edit mode, if I play a note on my keyboard here, it says 1, next time I press a note, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to 1 again. So you can see what it's doing is it's just sequentially numbering the notes that come out, and this is how you can start splitting off your messages to different directions so you can treat them differently. That's what polyphony of course is all about. Let's go back into edit mode, select these again, delete them, and I'll put that back to a 1. Okay, so that's the first point that it's done. We'll be going back and using this, as I said earlier, making a polyphonic synth later on. What I want to do now though is to take that voice message and send all the ones that are poly value of voice value 1 off in one direction. And to do that, I'm going to pack them all together so that they're treated in one go, and that is another object called, unsurprisingly, a pack. Pack and 0, 0, 0. These are the default values, but these will expect 3 inputs, and they're going to be from poly. There's the voice number, there's the MIDI note number, there's the velocity. Great, but now what I actually want to do is to split off my voice numbers into different places. So I'm going to bring in another object, and I'm going to put in root, not root 0, root 1. I'm going to patch from here to here. So the way that this works is that I've set the argument in here to 1, so it says root 1. And this means that anything that has a voice number of 1 will come out of the left outlet. Anything that has a voice number that's not 1 will come out of the second outlet. You can change the number of outlets on these things. This is simple enough, but this is all we need for our simple monophonic synth. Now I want to split my note number and my velocity back into separate objects again because I want them to control to do different things. So another object goes in here, which is unpack 0, 0. Now one of the things that root does is, as well as splitting things with the voice number of 1 into the left outlet, it then strips off that voice number from what it outputs, so it's gone, it's been filtered out from the system. We only needed it to divide our signal to different directions. So I patch from here into here, and the two outputs we've got of this are going to be the note number, which, as we had earlier, It's going to go straight into this MIDI to frequency value. And the second one is the velocity. Now, MIDI note velocities go from 0 to 127. This, as you might guess from what we did earlier with the slider, means that we can actually choose it to be, well, we're going to use a multiplier to control how loud the signal is. But I don't want to make it 127 times louder when I do maximum velocity. I just want it to be 1 louder, actually a full loudness. In other words, what I need to do is to take the value that comes out of here and I need to divide it by 127 to change it to a range of 0 to 1 rather than a value of 0 to 127. Okay, again, watch it back, it probably hopefully makes more sense. So another object, divide by 127, patch this into here. And now, well, I'd like to keep this slider, it's nice to have, but what I'll do is I'll delete this, move it out of the way slightly, bring in another object of a multiplier that's for audio waveforms, patch from here to here, and then take this note velocity output from there, patch it to the second inlet, and then from here into my slider controlled multiplier. Let's save this. Let's turn up the level on here. Well, let's leave edit mode, turn up the level, and now hopefully it plays. And more importantly, when I let go of a note, it stops playing. If I play quieter and louder, the dynamics of my playing are reflected, and that's because the MIDI note number is controlling the level of the signal. Okay, as I said, that was going to be a fairly complicated one. Go back, rewatch it, try it out for yourself, and you can always get in touch and we can talk about it. Cheers.